Why did the 2023 Australian Indigenous Voice referendum fail? If you ask prominent advocates in the Yes campaign, they will tell you that it failed because of misinformation. During the campaign and after it, Marcia, Langton, Tom Calma, Linda Burney, Noel Pearson, among others, all referred to misinformation being a crucial reason why the Yes position failed to win a majority of votes. Of course, false claims and rumours were disseminated. Nevertheless, proponents of the voice also had a tendency to brook no dissent. In a fact check published in October 2023, The Guardian deemed claims about the voice's legal risks, potential for division, lack of detail, all to be misinformation. But opinions are not facts, and personal judgment cannot be subjected to the same standards of accuracy as empirical claims. And on the topic of the voice, opinions differed. In a document published by La Trobe University titled Challenging Misinformation About Sex and Gender Diversity, Australian academics have described terms such as biological woman and biological man as harmful myths. In this case, it's not merely a difference of opinion that is being labelled as false, but words and concepts that have long established cultural and scientific meaning. In another document published by Melbourne University, written by the Trans Research Health Group, a diverse range of claims are characterised as misinformation. They include linking transgenderism to poor mental health, suggesting that puberty blockers may have irreversible effects, or suggesting that a significant subset of young people who do transition might later come to regret it. Misinformation, according to this health group, also leads trans youth to have an increased risk of suicide. In this case, the term misinformation is being used to foreclose inquiry. The term has been instrumentalized to present hypotheses as proofs. It's not just academics who have instrumentalized the term to service their own credo. Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Chris Bowen, has accused the coalition of spreading disinformation about nuclear energy. One journalist for The Guardian has accused the former CEO of ANSTO, the Australian Nuclear Science Organisation, of peddling misinformation. His crime? Critiquing the economic modelling of the CSIRO. It's easy to see how this term can be exploited for political ends. Even so, misuse of the term doesn't negate the fact that false information exists and spreads rapidly online. Misleading content is published in print and online every second of every day in every region in the world. But while all of us have a responsibility to challenge falsehoods in the public domain, it is not the government's role to act as an authority on what is true. Similarly, it is not the government's role to deputise such an authority to platforms they seek to regulate. Yet this is precisely what the Communications Minister, Michelle Rowland's Combating Misinformation and Disinformation Bill proposes to do. The bill defines misinformation as content that is reasonably verifiable as false, misleading or deceptive, and that is reasonably likely to cause or contribute to serious harm. The definition of serious harm includes harm to electoral or referendum processes, harm to public health, vilification of a group, as well as imminent harm to the Australian economy. The body in charge of interpreting these definitions and ensuring that digital platforms, i.e. social media companies, comply with the legislation is the Australian Communications and Media Authority, ACMA. It will be vested with new powers. The bill will lead to a culture of preemptive censorship and chilling effects, Sydney barrister Gray Connolly told me. Measures taken to combat misinformation and disinformation could themselves risk undermining Australia's democracy and freedoms, wrote the Human Rights Commissioner Lorraine Finlay. In a submission on the bill, the Australian Law Council has said that given the breadth of the definition of misinformation as outlined, the Law Council cautions that a digital platform is unlikely to have sufficient expertise or adequate resources to make accurate and completely informed determinations as to whether content is false. Therefore, to be compliant with the law, platforms will have to self-censor large swaths of information that appears online. It is possible to recognize that the spread of false and malicious information is a problem, while also recognizing that any centralized top-down control of information is a bigger problem. This bill will embolden those who already exploit the term to brook no dissent, foreclose inquiry, and declare commonly shared words and concepts to be harmful. The context and timing of the introduction of this bill is significant. The current government is scarred by its experience of the voice referendum, when a proposal that was nurtured for years was rejected by 60% of Australian voters. The first stage of grief is denial, followed by anger, then bargaining, then depression and acceptance. We can see denial at play in the proposal of the bill. The current government fails to grasp the complexities of regulating online speech, with all the conflicting interests and interpretations that go along with it. Denial has resulted in legislation that appears woefully overbroad for its stated purpose. But we can also see anger and bargaining at play. The government's actions could be seen as a calculated response to their perceived loss of control over public discourse. The anger is directed at those they view as purveyors of misinformation, the social media companies, while the bargaining takes the form of redefining the rules of engagement in the public sphere. By seeking to instrumentalize misinformation in the lead up to the next election, the government is trying to negotiate a more favourable position for themselves in the court of public opinion. Rather than accepting that the way we share information has changed forever, the government is stuck in the earlier, more reactive stages of grief. The misinformation bill is an attempt to bargain their way back to a past where they held greater sway over public opinion. The text of this video is based on a column I wrote for the Australian newspaper. I've pasted the link below, and you can subscribe to the Australian by clicking on the link. We'll have an editorial on this issue out shortly at Quillette. Please let me know what you think of this bill in the comments below.